Good afternoon. On what is a bright, mild but blustery day, I am back in the reading nook with some parcels and a nice hot cup of tea. And the next one I'm going to dig into is this one. If I can get it open, it's proving elusive. Well, that didn't help. Okay. Let's go for, not quite brute force, but let's just apply. And I've got it. If I could have got hold of that, it would have made things a lot easier. Let's just show you what this is. And this is a copy of, well, possibly, it's one of those role-playing games which is notorious. Notoriously over-designed, notoriously complex perhaps, and notorious perhaps for its effect upon the industry. It has its own history that essentially designed by the great Gygax. It contributed, I'm not saying it caused, but it certainly contributed to the end of Game Designers Workshop as a publisher. So this was published in 1992, and it's designed by Gygax. It would have been Game Designers Workshop's, GDW's entry into the fantasy genre, but sadly, the terms under which Gary Gygax left TSR meant that there were limitations upon what he could produce next, and this is what he did. TSR objected, and ultimately Game Designers Workshop would lose the rights to this, and there would be one printing run of this and some subsequent supplements, one Mythus Magic for the Magic source book, and then a book on the Necropolis, a setting book, a bestiary possibly, and that was it. And it would be covered by its own magazine, but it wouldn't last very long. So flipping through this, and this automatically, I'm looking at this layout in here, it's quite dense, but the tables and the style and layout of the book, I said quite dense, reminds me automatically of an early 90s supplement from Game Designers Workshop, a la Travel the New Era, for example. But anyway, this is Mythus Fantasy Role-Playing. Role-playing at its finest, simple or with elective complexities. This game, which placed this game far beyond any other, straightforward mechanics with emphasis upon percentile dice and a six-sided die, yet allowing a battery of optional modifiers to heighten realism to any degree desired. More than 30 starting vocational backgrounds for heroic persona creation, plus as many personalised ones as the Game Master wishes to add. A knowledge stroke skill system, using percentile probabilities with hundreds of areas and sub-areas to learn, and specialisations too. With JOS, socio-economic class considerations, special connections, quirks, background information, and more included. Never have role-playing RPG personas had the character and personality of the heroic personas herein, or has role-playing been so detailed and enabled. Hyperbole indeed. More armour and weapons included than would be found in the arsenal of a medieval potentate. Use them with a short and easy combat resolution method, or with expansions that take into account virtually every salient feature of armed, magical, and mental or spiritual battle too. Persona advancement based on logical and realistic standards, not relying on loot garnered and critters slain. So there's a dig at a certain other game which we know well. No totally fancifully monetary system with ridiculous standards and confusing pricing. Income and costs are as easy as knowing what a buck or BUC is. All this and still more. Need more details? Buy this book. In it, you will find everything you need to begin playing. Along with it, pick up the Mythus Magic Volume, Book 2 of these rules, with over 1,000 magical castings, plus powers, personalised casters, and more. And the Epic of Earth Companion Volume, which describes the world of Earth in detail. That's AERTHTM. Find a comfortable place and begin reading immediately. This work is a quantum leap in role-playing games, something which enthusiasts have waited for years. As I say, hyperbole indeed. I have to say, quite possibly, it's overwrought and overwritten, and it's the sort of thing you could come to expect of kind of like Gygax and TSR. And here, it's being done by GDW. It's just, yeah. So this somewhat back to the version I picked up because I want to get into at some point I'm going to sit down and read this 400-odd page rule book. They did get that big back in these days, and do a full review because this was published 30 years ago. So yeah, so here we get to the table of contents. And I'm hoping this is basically going to stand up to the handling here, because essentially we've got a page loose there, and we've got the editor's preface from Lester Smith before we get into the full game. Just trying to check the artists on here, because there are some names that I probably want to mention. Yeah, that's the name I want. So we get to the player section, prefaced by this great artwork. I think that's Janet Arsulio. Fantastic artwork. Her artwork would grace a lot of pages of the dark conspiracy books at the time. So here we get the first page. We have the creating your heroic persona. And the first thing you do is you establish your socioeconomic class table. And so choose or roll, and then we've got the trait levels, choose a vocation, and then we get, there we go, that's it. And then we start off with the occupations with Alchemist. So we have pages and pages of those, as I say. So, so basically we've got descriptions of what they are, just not pages. So there's a page or so of these of, alchemist, astrologer, cavalier, mercenary soldier, mountebank, thief, wise woman or wise man, and then we get into basic knowledge skill areas. Then we have the vocation tables for each of those kind of four. So there's basically there's 8 vocations, and we're still kind of dwelling upon establishing. You establish your socio-economic class, and then we go on to establish finances and possessions. And here it says what the buck is. It's a BUC, basic unit coin. And that's it on creating characters, which seems surprisingly slim. For all the vaunted description on the back, it's got like, that's it. And before we get into, conducting actions, what they're doing, and then we have Heka, mystical force of magical castings. So really we've got very quickly we've got getting into the basics of the game without getting a lot of detail, I suppose. And then we have improving skills and abilities, and that's really kind of it in the base kind of game. I kind of like that. That's quite a lot. And you've got an example of combat. There's an early example of play as well, all in the first 28 pages, 30 pages or so. Before we get into more detail, so Also, we've got the Howler Guide, role-playing expertise, and example of play, playing your HP. So, you know, that's not HP source, that's not higher purchase, that is definitely your heroic persona. So that's quite an limited example. That's what, there's a few pages. Upgrading to advanced Mythus game. So, you know, that does advanced combat, complete Heckard at using the Epic of Earth with the Mythus Prime rules. So I say, I have actually, I've basically had a couple of copies go through my hands of this, and I've always meant to dig into it, and it's sort of thing that sort of passed me by. So we've got basically special powers, and as I say, with it being, you know, 30 years this old, somebody should sort of go, well, what was this about? Was it any good? And then we have, we've got basically, so that's the advanced rules, and we get, that's 46 pages in. Page 47, we have High Time at the Winged Pig. So we've got basically a scenario, or just you know, less than 50 pages into the book, and you know, that's something basically we've got. You know, it's in a basically a village, or you know, and takes place in a tavern, and you have timed encounters, and you can go as well as things you can do. So there's essentially things you could do, like, you know, dartboard, test of skill, timed encounters like you dropped this, a test of integrity and honesty, the argument test of negotiation, influence, and self-control. So there's an element of sort of like the programmed. I'll show you that a programmed play there, essentially, you know, with the author highlighting the particular role-playing aspects of the character, you know, the messenger, test of good sense, and so on. Aha, you vixen, test of bravery and weapon skills, and then we have the NPCs, and it's almost a shame that this is never going to come out, never going to be seen again. Then we got the map. So yeah, I mean that's sort of like almost a 10-page scenario. You know, and basically this is going from the basic rules for Mythus Prime to the advanced rules, and then we've got advanced Mythus itself. So we've got more of that really great, fantastically detailed artwork, and then creating advanced Mythus HPs. So I can see how when I come to review this, I've got to do this step by step, create a basic character, then to create an advanced character, to essentially show you how it's done. So yeah, you know, again, you are starting off with a socio-economic class. It's a bit more detailed. Population distribution. Yeah, you almost wish at this point that I'm thinking, okay, these days I would love this to be a boxed set. You know, the basic book and the adventure, that gets everything involved, and then you upgrade the next. More tables, you know, positions by socio-economic class. So lots of three-letter TLAs, three-letter acronyms, SEC vocations, you know, terminology you wouldn't normally use in everyday play, but you've got colour inserts as well. And it was a classic thing that certainly in the early 90s, it would be very rare for you to have a full colour book. Instead, you would have these colour inserts. Just see if I get. Let's say, yeah, this is not in perfect condition, but it's in readable condition. And I have to say, the colour artwork is not that good. It's okay. It's okay at best. You know, And the other problem, of course, was the fact that the colour artwork always was, you know, because it was printed on different paper and glued in, it was never kind of stuck round, it's taken place quite as well it should. You have, you know, again, reasonable artwork, and the black and white is so much better, in my opinion. So, and then we have Alchemy vocations table, apothecary table, arms vocations table for cavalier, knight, etc. Engineer vocations, so you know, tables of skills for your particular character types, or depending upon what you roll. And then more of this, you know, weird artwork. I mean, I like that one's quite fun. You know, essentially, I don't quite know what's going on there. Whether the wizard is flying away and the guy, the barbarian or scout is trying to grab him before he gets away in the air, or they're both trying to get away and it's just not going as well as they planned. So yeah, lots of essentially. Also, we've got things like the outlawry, vocations tables, mountebanks, thieves, pirates, bandits. Priesthood vocation tables and so on. So there's lots more options here. You know, primitive vocations charts, and so on. Just expanding the range of character options available, increasing the complexity at each stage. Scholar vocation tables as well. So there's multiple Voyager location tables. So this is all the advanced Primus content. Non-human persona, so Alpha, Elfren, Elf, Dwarf, Gnome. So, you know, depending upon whether or not you allow those in your campaign, they are there. As I said, windy. So where we've got to, so then we start going into the sort of like the various traits, the various knowledge stroke skill sub areas, and by trait. And then we've got things like birth rank, if that comes into play. Depends on what you're going to inherit, of course. Or, you know, if you're the seventh son of a seventh son, you're destined for interesting things. And we have a quirks table. So this is all background you can roll up as well. Okay, a counter quirk table. Race tables, more quirks and counter quirks. How many counter quirks and counter quirks do you need in one game? Of course, in the long term, you also got things like political beliefs, religious attitudes, general personality, general interests, just more and more. And then heroic persona resources, wealth, net worth, special connections. I don't know, just as I said, it is detailed in here. Standard items, so you've got lists of equipment as well. Not the easiest of things to read. This white on grey. I also just show. There we go. Yeah, not easy by any means. The chaos operational system. Here we get onto the core game system. So basically, combined effects, rolling via guesswork, special successes and failure, determining the difficulty rating. You know, it's rolling via guesswork. And, so let me get to chaos. Knowledge versus knowledge stroke skill rolls. The many uses of Joss, whatever Joss is. It basically doesn't actually tell you, but hey, presumably that's your luck. Movement and time. I mean, there's not much here to really interesting to look at, but it's all covered here. So you know, movement and time, general time, because it's mostly you know, texts and tables. and then accomplishments points for handling advancement. And then we've got a lengthy section on skills. And more artwork. I'll show you the artwork rather than necessarily for the skills. You don't need to see list of skills. There we go. And language interrelations. So you know, can you speak with if you speak one language? Can you speak parts of another language? More artwork. As I say, it's quite a thick book. A lot to it, and much of it is really that, but with tables, not a lot of not a huge amount of internal artwork. The colour stuff is kind of, some of it's good, some of it is a bit, I don't know, garish. That was quite nice. Martial arts attacks that we get on to, so I'm getting to a point is that probably nearing, I don't know whether I've missed the combat system, but I'm sure it's getting close. So that's really just, heck of forging table, whatever that is, magic forging, I don't know, metal forging. Skills get as detailed as hunting, tracking, jack of all trades, juggling, leatherwork, mines and mining, mountain climbing, police work, smithing, welding. So that's quite just. So really we're dealing with this section here, covers knowledge, and then we get into spiritual knowledge skill areas, and it's going to do the same. It's to do the same for magic. So alchemy. Complete with alchemical operation table, laboratory facilities, alchemical castings. Just show you that. So quite a thick book on standard alchemical actions. Conjuration. Exorcism, exorcist castings. So that's the magic kind of section. At least the core rules. They're not listing necessarily the spells, I don't think. Sorcerer, and then we get on to knowledge skill areas for economic gain. So it's like highly detailed. This is perhaps going into a game. A detail that perhaps wouldn't necessarily be done today. I don't think they're not quite so detailed. I'm sure there are exceptions. So now finally we get to combat. It takes into account essentially avoidance, speed factors, mental combat, attack to drain, attack to paralyze, attack to derange. Seriously, attack to derange. Attack to control, attack to weaken, spiritual combat, attack to demoralize, attack to subvert, attack to confound. Hacker-based, and you've got the hacker-based combat summary. So lots of different little subsystems, to really work your way through. Depending upon what you play, then finally we get on to physical combat, non-lethal summary, physical combat non-lethal, attack to stun, physical combat lethal. There's so much in here. Parrying, parrying table, strike location on table, applying physical damage. We've got basically tying it all together. So we've got a, for example, there. And again, that's probably the easiest. In some ways, reading through an example of play is the easiest way to learn, because it's showing you how it actually works. And we've got weapons and armor and information tables. Table-tastic, honestly, table-tastic game. Missile weapons. Oh boy, I did not expect to be spending quite so much. And then descriptions. Just a sec. Yes, we have lots of descriptions of polearms. Although I don't see a Bohemian ear spoon in here. Just check. No, I think you're safe. You're ear spoon free. So yeah, and then same again for armor. And barding for your steeds, averaged armor tables. So honestly, you can put it all together or just go with the average. So more of the full colour artwork. And then things like suffering damage, dazing, permanent damage, shock, combat scene, and then for your delight we get on to disease. Just sort of like just suddenly switches between armor and then shock on disease. Just getting to shock, damage from other physical injuries. So disease. So delightfully we have descriptions of the Black Plague, typhus, and more of this artwork. And poisons, of course. So only the two diseases. No other diseases. Again, more artwork. Healing, whether normal healing or assisted through Heka. Heka and magic. Just think you'll never go. It seems to sort of go on and on. Sample Dwemercraft castings. Unbelievable. Just the amount of content in here. Whether or not, obviously people do play it, but and then we've got sample castings and sample apototreism. I pronounced that wrong. Sorry. Castings and more sample herbalism castings. And more, and of course, sorry, we're just 291. I've just been joined by a cat who is not ours. So we've got to. So that's spells upon spells. So sample mysticism castings. A guide to. Gone to the campaign and game mastering. So they're dealing with the sort of like looking at the genre. So whether that you've got the fantasy and swords and sorcery, the multi-milieu of Earth, then the group creation of heroic personas, an introductory adventure for episodes for individual heroic personas. So all there. He doesn't appreciate what this is. So that's dealing with individual character types. Then we have a discussion of game realism versus playability. a question: is it fun? Interpretation of the rules. Game master only versus group adjudication of questions. Changing rule systems, and then role playing. And more on personas. Sort of like almost like they forgot to put it in the rest of the book, but we have, so that's awarding accomplishment points and changes of socio-economic class. So you too, son, can go adventuring and go up in the world. Well, you know, basically, Conan did. So it's good. It's good for if it's good for him, it's good for you. Sorry, he is just going, are you going to pay attention to me whilst you're talking? So, a moment whilst I just stroke his head. Oh, and finally, some monsters. We're going to get into some monsters. It is creating monstrous things. And there's we've got a table here of extreme attractiveness effects. To sample things once human, so skeleton and zombie. Sample things once human, so gaunt and vampire. Vampire unalive. Okay. Vampire preternatural, vampire supernatural. Multiple different types of vampires, or different stages of vampires. So these are not necessarily the easiest to read. So we've got a sample of griffins and unicorns and Pegasus. Just more monsters. Are just okay. Fine. Lots and lots. And then we have sample other personas. So we've got some NPCs at the back of the book. So this is a huge book. It's got and then we've got a bestiary of everything: cats, dogs, hearts, coral snakes. Then we've got ogres. None of these are illustrated, which is disappointing to see what they thought of them. And then we get into sort of like the background, where you've got personas and life forms found on Earth and Fairy. So that's the setting for you. And with sample encounters of various creatures. This is when I say this is a text me yourself. So more sample encounters. So lots and lots of these, several pages of these. Again on this background of the table, which is just fantastically difficult to read. And condemned as galley slaves. Oh, I bet that's going to be one of those adventures where you start off with your equipment and then get captured and thrown into jail or being a galley slave. In this instance, so you've got a full adventure at the back. The player's background is: there was a foreboding during the last night that they should have given you a clue that something was wrong. Perhaps there's a fog, strangely thick for this time of year. It clung close to the ground and muffled the sounds of the guardsmen who came out of nowhere. Or it was the gibbous moon and barely sufficient light to see your way, not enough for you to detect the captors who lay in wait for you and your friends. Essentially, despite your protest, you were taken to jail and placed in separate cells. So you end up as galley slaves. He's disappointed. He's making his way off. I've got a complete description of the ship. So deck A, deck B, deck C, decks. It just seems pages and pages of detail. It's sort of like it's almost like this is. I think this is almost like a solo adventure. I don't know. Okay, but okay, no map of the boat. It's huge, but the adventure log, of the events. Days and we're going up from days 1 up to days 53, all the way through, and then we've got sort of like NPCs for it. Lots of NPCs. Let's see, that's stuffed. Oh, we've actually got some background information. So, oh, here's the boat. Here's the ship you'll be aboard, galley. And this is a map of Mare Librum and its environments, the setting for the scenario. I'm presuming because you end up in Egypt. Appendices. So random events tables. Device malfunctions of personality characteristics. Again, they're discussing those yet more. Secret societies. And a discussion of Obeah and voodoo in the fantasy milieu, off-world mages and expatriate priests, and so on. Technical devices and other special considerations. Appendix G, converting from other systems to heroic personas, including from personas that are class and or level. So you know who he's speaking to. The 9 dimensions of the multiverse. The reason for the return from dead. We've got a parallel heroic personas. Whereas tables, heroic persona creation summary. Yep, all the way back here, where all the tables are sort of like, you know, a glossary. Let's just check. Okay, Hecker's the energy that powers castings and other things associated with magic, priestcraft, and sorcery. And Joss is something similar to, but much more than luck. It affects chance, alters fate, changes karma, etc. Vocation et al. Name definitions in Appendix L. So if you don't like the name of your vocation, you can change it, and we'll discuss it here. So that's quite a lot. And then we've got the character sheet, so you can see that. That looks quite nice and simple, but it just that to that, you know. And you've got an index of the major topics. You could get the feeling that it really could do with a longer. Got an index of the major charts and tables, and then we have a couple of ads. So essentially, we have the master role-playing game has outdone himself with books from Rock right at his side. So you did actually have a series of novels by Gygax for the Dangerous Journeys setting, and an electronic journey to adventure for the JVC. To the computer game, and last, of course, you've got the journal of Dangerous Journeys as well. So that is Dangerous Journeys by Gary Gygax, published in 1992, 30 years old this year. This is going to be a journey of itself in order to dig into and do a proper review, but I do plan to do that later this year. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook, please do click on the like button down below. If you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you will see me out here with a parcel and a book or game which I will unbox and talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes, or roughly 40 minutes in this case. But to be said, to the best extent of my knowledge, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.